It was late August, and my brother Drew and I had been on the road with our friends Rosie and Jane for more than 6 weeks since we first set out from southern England. We'd sustained countless breakdowns, survived desert temperatures without air conditioning, gotten horribly lost, and done our best to fend off bribes. Now, the combination of everything was slowly taking its toll. We were feeling worn down, and tensions were running high. On top of everything else, we had to do some incredibly long days of driving to make up for time lost dealing with car repairs. And it was after one of these days that my brother, who'd once been the most enthusiastic voice encouraging the rest of us to keep going and not to give up hope, said he'd had his fill of adventure and that it didn't matter all that much whether we finished or not. After all we'd come, that rubbed Rosie the wrong way.
You know, I'm sorry, but we have spent days and days not on the road because of the car, and that's impacted all of us. So this is the result. This is what happens. And if you don't care about the finish line, that's fine. Jane and I do.
I don't, but at the same time I do realize that we're in this together, and I do want to finish it with everybody. And I don't mean to be complaining. I don't. I'm just...
But you are.
I'm sorry that I'm honest and I have voiced my opinion.
If it's just a vent, that's
It is a vent.
absolutely
It is a
fine.
vent. Yeah.
But, you know, when we climb out of the car, and it's been hard on all of us, and I just feel overwhelmed by you just looking and feeling miserable, because that's not what I want.
We were about to enter Mongolia, which Rosie had planned for us to drive across in just 5 days in order to make it to the finish line in time to catch our flights home. Drew thought that seemed too quick to be enjoyable, and he doubted whether it was even possible.
We have no idea how Mongolia is going to be. Based on what I've read and what Scott's read, it's probably going to be a lot more difficult than we're realizing, which I'm fine with. But I'm just thinking the roads are going to be absolutely treacherous. And I'm hoping I'm wrong, of course.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to kick our ass. I really do.
Maybe I'm not being realistic about that side of it then.
I don't know.
I'm probably being a little bit Pollyanna-ish because I'm in denial. It's such a great place to be.
I shared some of Drew's concerns. I'd been reading updates other teams ahead of us had posted in the Rally Facebook group, and it sounded like Mongolia's notoriously bad roads were living up to their reputation.
Someone posted, "The northern route tried to kill us. We ended up having to turn around and head back to Russia through the same border we came in through. It took us an extra 3 days to get back out."
Wow.
And then this other team responded, "We went the southern route. It claimed 1 steering rack, 1 sump, 1 bumper, 4 tires, 1 set of brakes, rear suspension, etc., etc."
You are joking.
It's right here.
Jane continued reading over my shoulder.
The south was pretty brutal. Plenty of river crossings, deep sandy pits, massive rocks you can't see, massive potholes.
"Oh, Christ," Rosie said. Drew had the opposite reaction. His eyes widened.
That I actually look forward to in a way, in a really weird way.
Not when you're on a time crunch, though.
Now he starts to perk up.
Not when you're on a time crunch.
Yeah, but some things like that are just inevitable. I mean, when something goes wrong, that's adventure to me. I mean, even if the driving is slow and the roads are absolutely crazy, I think Mongolia is where the real adventure is going to start.
I'm Scott Gurian. I'm a longtime public radio and print reporter, and I've created this podcast called Far From Home to document the unexpected adventures and chance encounters I have with interesting people around the world. To start off, I'm telling the story of a massive road trip my brother and I took with our friends, raising money for charity. We drove nearly 11,000 miles.
11,000?
That's right, a quarter of the way around the Earth, from London to Mongolia, through 18 countries, 8 time zones, 5 mountain ranges, and a few deserts, in a ridiculously tiny car.
It's like the Beverly Hillbillies.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's the adventure, isn't it? It's just the thing of pushing yourself to the absolute limit, because I think it's going to take us out of our comfort zone, but in a really good way.
If you're just joining me, I suggest you first go back and listen to all the previous episodes in order to get up to speed and for all of this to make a bit more sense. From language barriers to car trouble, getting horribly lost to paying bribes to shady traffic cops, it's been quite an amazing experience, and over the coming episodes, I'll be bringing all of you along with me for the ride. You know how people sometimes look back at things that happened to them and say, "I should have seen the signs"? Well, in our case, there was one very clear sign that seemed to be warning us of all that was about to take place. It was bright blue with white lettering, and it was hanging from the guard booth as we exited Kazakhstan. It simply said, "Good luck." There's not much to say about our short drive through a little section of the Altai region of Russia. It was pretty, with lots of farms, sunflower fields, and tree-covered mountains, but it went by quickly because we were more focused on what was to come. On our way back out of Russia, a couple of days later, the border guards brought a big German shepherd over to sniff through our bags and make sure we didn't have any drugs. Actually, they were still training the dog, so after asking our permission, they planted a little Tupperware container with what they said were fake drugs in one of my brother's bags to test if the dog could find it, which he did after slobbering all over the rest of our luggage. 2.5 hours and multiple pages of paperwork later, we got our exit stamps. A guard checked our passports one last time and then opened the gate. After nearly a year of planning, the big moment had arrived.
We are now officially in Mongolia.
We made it to Mongolia! Finally! We're here. Oh, look at this little playground to the right with the yaks hanging out by it.
Yeah. It seemed like the roads immediately changed when we crossed the border, right?
It was paved up until the fence on the Russian side. As soon as he opened the gate and we crossed into Mongolia, it was dirt road.
Yeah, it got much rockier and a sign of what's to come.
Absolutely.
Over the next several days, yeah.
All around us were these sort of barren, rolling hills and wide open spaces without much in the way of vegetation. The landscape had a harsh and formidable appearance, and the weather didn't help. As we stopped at a booth to buy car insurance, some dark storm clouds rolled in and it began to rain.
Oh man, it is freezing. This wind is blowing so strong. The sky is very overcast. We're thrilled to be in Mongolia, but we're wishing it wasn't this chilly.
I asked Rosie how she was feeling.
I'm actually in a good headspace at the moment. I'm looking forward to the next few days. Apprehensive about it, really apprehensive about it. But I just think we've got so little time left. I want us all to enjoy it and finish on a high.
Right. This was kind of the part you were looking forward to the whole trip.
Yeah. Well, the Pamir Highway was what I was really looking forward to. But getting to Mongolia and seeing it, yeah, you know. And for me, it's very much about the scenery. It's about the drive from one place to another. I'm hoping that we get some of these amazing vistas. I'm hoping that the weather is going to be good. It actually looks as if it may be a bit variable today, to be perfectly honest. There's some black clouds around as well as some blue sky. My mother always said, if there's enough blue sky to make a sailor a pair of trousers, then it'll be a good day. He's got to be a skinny sailor. That's all I can say at the moment. But let's keep our fingers crossed.
Back on the road, my brother said he was a bit disappointed.
So what were you expecting Mongolia would be like?
Warm, sunny.
Really?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I didn't think we were in the mountains anymore. I just expected just big fields with yak and beautiful sunshine. I think this weather has taken all of us by great surprise. I mean, rain is one thing, but the fact that it's going down to 34 degrees tonight, that's unexpected.
What do you think about the roads?
It's very loud. The car is getting rattled to death. But it's not challenging to drive on. It's very annoying. I'd much rather drive on almost any part of the Pamir Highway than a washboard road like this for any length of time, because this isn't fun at all. It actually shakes you to the core. It hurts your eardrums, definitely hurts the car. I'm in second gear right now. I can't even get to third gear because there's not enough traction on the road to keep up any speed, but I'm sure it's gonna get a lot worse.
Now, before I go any further with this episode, I'm going to assume that you're like I was before I took this trip, and you probably don't know very much about Mongolia. It's a pretty fascinating place, though, so I want to take a quick moment to share a few things I've learned. So, cue the Mongolian dance music. First of all, Mongolia is twice the size of Texas, with only about 3 million people, so it has the lowest population density of any country on Earth. There's a strong nomadic culture, so a lot of families in the countryside live in yurts, or gurs, which are basically these round, windowless buildings with chimneys in the middle and fabric sides. Chinggis Khan is considered the founding father of the country despite his brutal reputation, so there are statues of him everywhere, and his image is on everything from bottles of vodka to the local currency, which is called the tugrug. And if you turn on the radio to hear what the kids these days are listening to, you might be surprised to learn that yodeling techno is actually a thing in Mongolia. No kidding. Seriously, this was one of the most popular songs in Mongolia a few years back, and I can't seem to get it out of my head. The other thing you should know is that Mongolian culture tends to be deeply superstitious. Now, Drew and I wanted to do our best to be good guests and avoid making embarrassing faux pas. So, as we continued driving, we took turns reading from our guidebook about traditional customs and social rules.
If you're invited into someone's ger, which is like a yurt, you're supposed to only move inside in a clockwise direction. Meals mostly consist of mutton with surprise delicacies such as goat meat or marmot.
You can't turn down any delicacies even if they're not to your liking?
After the meal, Mongolians have a tendency to burst into song, and even the most timid-looking nomad is persuaded to sing. A small cup of vodka is passed around, and if it stops in front of you, then it's your turn to sing, so come prepared.
Oh, God. What's your song gonna be?
I don't know, I gotta think of something good.
If you're offered a shot of vodka, you must dip your ring finger in the vodka, flick it in the air, then wipe it on your forehead.
It's like a blessing.
It's a blessing, yeah. What else was there?
Fire is apparently very sacred. You can never stamp out a fire with your feet. You never throw any garbage or anything into a fire. Don't use an axe near a fire, it says, because it threatens the god of the fire. Here it says milk sprinkling ceremony. The small amount of milk poured over an object is a method of asking for a blessing. It's performed to wish bon voyage to travelers when milk is sprinkled on the horse's head and rump and in the direction the traveler is taking, while everyone else present prays or thinks good thoughts. So just understand, if we go somewhere and someone starts pouring milk over a horse's head and rump, they just mean the best for us.
This is going to be very difficult not to offend anybody.
Personally, I could honestly say I didn't have many expectations about Mongolia, but Jane apparently did. And over dinner that night, she confided to the rest of us that this was not at all what she thought it would be.
It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. I've not seen anything here that I like yet.
Actually, that was an understatement, because she clarified a few minutes later that this seemed like the worst country she'd been to so far. Aside from the weather, she thought the people didn't seem as friendly as they'd been in other places, and the overall experience wasn't as authentic as she had hoped. That's something I noticed as well. I mean, the locals were so used to seeing rally teams drive past that it sometimes felt a bit like Disney World. As we passed through towns, hotel owners would flag us down to try to convince us to stay at their place, or we'd round a hill in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly 2 kids with an eagle would be standing there, waiting for tourists like us to pay them to pose for a photo. But what images did we have of Mongolia to begin with?
I feel like none of us really knew much of anything about it, but sort of romanticized it just because we're on the Mongol Rally. And you see all these pictures and you just assume that half of the beautiful videos and pictures you see are just in Mongolia because it's called the Mongol Rally.
Beautiful children wearing those beautiful hats.
Maybe we will see them.
Rosie opened to a page in her guidebook and chimed in.
A small child with a lamb around its neck instead of a scarf. Look, rather than bother with a scarf, they just pick up the nearest lamb.
Okay.
See, it's a very cute photograph.
That's on your bucket list of things to see.
Totally.
Yes.
You know, I'm hoping that we see the romantic side of Mongolia. I mean, we got glimpses of it on the journey here, but it was a pretty bloody miserable day.
I guess what I'm wondering is, what is the romantic side? Like, does it actually exist, or is it in your mind? I mean,
Drew and I years ago went to the Grand Canyon, and we were thinking of that as the big highlight. Drew kept saying, well, hurry up, we want to make sure we leave time, we've got to see it. And we got there, and it was pretty, but it's like you have all these things you build up, all these expectations and everything, and in some ways you're setting it up for failure. Like, it's very hard that anything could ever live up to this fantasy, you know?
Like, you have all these preconceptions. I mean,
I'm beginning to think it was all in my mind, I have to say.
Up until you entered here, were you looking forward to Mongolia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you've totally changed. You've totally flipped.
Yeah, so far.
You're not giving it much of a chance.
But tomorrow is another day.
We set out the following morning, and the farther we ventured into the heart of the country, the rougher the terrain became. As we went along, I thought about all the times I went skiing when I was younger, and if you've ever skied, you know that the trails are usually sorted according to difficulty, so those marked with green circles are the easiest, blue squares are intermediate, and black diamonds are the most challenging. I thought about how back home, driving is totally different from skiing. In other words, aside from an occasional slick roadway due to ice or rain, it's generally really easy, and something pretty much anyone can do. But here in Mongolia, that certainly wasn't the case. I imagined that if Mongolia's road system were a ski slope, nearly the entire thing would be a black diamond, warning all but the most adventurous travelers to stay away.
So this is really impossible trying to figure out our way across Mongolia because it's just kind of dirt tracks. And we'll inevitably come to forks in the road, and we have no idea which way to go. There's no signs or anything, of course. And so it's just trying to figure out which way seems right. It's hard to tell looking at the map. It's not always accurate. Sometimes it shows routes that aren't there, or it doesn't show routes that aren't there. There's a big lake here, which is totally not shown on the map. And then sometimes we'll come to an area like this, it's just a clearing, and there's dirt all over. The road kind of widens out, and it's really hard to tell where the road is at all. We spend a lot of time going down one path and then realizing that we're way off the map and then turning around and trying a different path. So it's very slow going. It's funny when you look at the paper maps and you see this big thick red line for the road we're on, but then when you're on it, it looks nothing like what it looks like on the map. This is hardly a road. Like back home on a map, there would hardly even be a little dashed line for a trail, but here this is like the main road.
This is their version of an interstate.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to drive, but it's really, I don't know, I find a lot of joy in this. Having to constantly dodge, where there's ruts, the tracks where we're driving, and then in the middle, sometimes or oftentimes it gets too high, so you have to constantly sort of be drifting and sliding across the gravel and dirt to the other side of the road to avoid damaging the bottom of the car. So, I don't know, I actually find it to be fun. You can't fall asleep on a road like this, that's for sure.
But just in case either of us did somehow start to doze off, there were other interesting challenges to keep us on our toes.
Okay, so one of the things we've heard about in Mongolia is the river crossings on the roads, and we got one right here. Wow. Whoa. Oh man. It's like the road, it's really rocky, and it just kind of came to this little river, go right across. You just got to keep your foot on the gas, because if you stall in the water, then you're screwed. The water could get in the exhaust. I'm sure we will come to deeper ones, which we'll be a little worried about because this car just cannot go in water too deep. But that wasn't too bad. It was fun.
Before I went on this trip, I was under the naive impression that with all our modern day technology, it was basically impossible to get lost anywhere on the face of the earth. But Mongolia was unlike anywhere I had ever been. I mean, we were constantly comparing our multiple paper maps, Google navigation on our phones, and satellite GPS, and still we kept getting sidetracked.
We need to go that way.
I don't know.
This is not a road.
It's just two tracks you can barely see. It's not a well-traveled path.
Not at all.
So I don't know.
This is on the map, though, as like the main road. This can't be it. They still show that we're on the path, though.
Close to it anyway. There's not a single sign in this country. Oh, look at the carcass down there. Some kind of dead animal. It's a whole skeletal system.
We have no idea where we are, but this shows we're on.
Drew spoke to Rosie and Jane on the walkie-talkie.
Head towards the right that way, so maybe there's a road right at the foot of that hill that we need to get onto.
If you look at the base of that hill to the left, you can see a track round there. So I think that's where we need to be.
We were trying to get to a town called Kovt, and we saw some people standing outside their gur, so we figured they might know the way. The woman was wearing a bright red baseball cap that said FBI, and the guy was selling animal pelts.
Hello.
Kovt?
Kovt?
That way.
That way?
Oh.
Not this way?
You're totally lost. No, we gotta go
Around?
right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We turned around and started heading a different direction, but before long we came to some more water.
So we were trying to go across a shallow river crossing, and my brother was driving. He misjudged. The water's not that deep, but the exit on the other side is pretty steep, and our car can't make it up it. So our back tires are still in the water, front tires are up on the hill, and we're not able to get it.
The wheels are totally spinning. We're totally stuck. Hold on, she's gonna have to pull us out.
Jane had gotten out of her car to take a close look at the path before she drove it, and she and Rosie had gone ahead of us and made it to the other side just fine. So she was pissed that Drew decided to go his own way instead of following the path she had forged.
Don't ever do this ever again. There was a reason I walked that.
This was more shallow though. I thought this was a smarter choice.
Walk it next time.
While Jane scolded Drew, Rosie stood to the side. "I'm staying out of this," she said, pointing to a herd of animals. "I'm just going to look at yaks."
I find them very peaceful.
They are very peaceful.
They're wonderful. They're just the most gorgeous animals. I'd like to have one.
Let me take a look. Oh, I see what the problem is back here.
Okay, we got the tow rope attached.
Rosie, do you want to drive so we can push?
Okay. Okay, on the count of 3.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. We got it. We're getting it. We got it. Oh, we got it out.
You know how much you owe us.
You
owe us big time.
Wait, I think I got mud in my
I
eye.
don't care. Say I'm so grateful, Rosie and Jane.
We were happy to be free, but we didn't get out unscathed.
Look at our back bumper. This is new.
Oh my God. Bumper's nearly off.
Yeah.
"It's looking like a rally car now," she said. Now that Mongolia had inflicted the first of what would be several battle wounds, we did our best to secure the bumper and continued on our way.
Let's go. That was great.
From what we gathered from our maps, though, it looked like we'd need to make yet another river crossing a bit down the road. And after going through what we just experienced, we weren't wild about that idea. So Drew and I decided to take another path that looked like it might be an easier option.
See, this road curves around. I think if you just go over that pass, it might meet up.
There were so many tracks through the grass that we figured it would be easy to rejoin the main route later on, and for some dumb reason we were so convinced of this that we kept believing it even when we should have had our doubts.
See, we're parallel to where we would have been. The road we're supposed to be on is over that way. I know we're getting farther off the track, but the road also loops, so hopefully it'll loop back. We just can't make it up steep hills.
And that was precisely the problem. It would be fairly easy to take a detour if we were on flat terrain or if we had vehicles more capable of handling off-road conditions, but that simply wasn't the case. Before we knew it, we were back in a situation like we'd been in Tajikistan, where we were putting pedal to the metal, attempting to pick up speed to climb these inclines our little cars really weren't suited to climb. But remember, there's a danger in doing that, since rocks have a tendency to sneak up on you in a place like this, so going too fast is asking for trouble.
I'm in third, going 38 miles an hour at the approach. Going down to second. Oh God!
Oh my gosh.
No. Tell them to slow down.
Do not attempt that at speed.
I warned Rosie and Jane on the walkie-talkie.
Whoa, that could have been really bad.
Yeah.
But if at first you don't succeed, try again. So we backed up and made another attempt, and this time we had better luck.
Yes.
We got it.
How did
We
just
made
do
it.
that?
Wow. That was impressive. The small victories.
We'd gotten to the top of a ridge, but there were more potentially challenging ridges to climb ahead of us. Seeing this in retrospect, we really should have turned around at this point and gone back the way we came, but for some stupid reason I still can't explain, we decided to forge ahead.
This is some of the most incredible terrain that we've seen because it's completely untouched. We're driving through these incredibly vast valleys and there's snow in the distance and whoa.
Look at that hillside, just all these little dots of sheep and goats, brown and white and black. It's like a stipple painting or something.
Actually, it reminded me of that scene with the buffalo in Dances with Wolves. It looked like there were thousands of them. We stopped to take some photos.
Isn't that cool?
That view when we came over that hill, that just blew me away. That sort of was worth the climb.
While Rosie and I were standing there in awe, Jane interrupted us with a reality check.
I'd just like to say one thing.
Yes.
There is no going back from here because we cannot get back up this hill.
Oh, we know that. We're heading in the right direction. We're heading towards the road. We're making progress.
And then we just have to climb over those and we're there.
Yeah, that's what I'm a bit
Now we're
worried
making
about.
progress.
But there is a track.
No, I think we're okay.
There's a track.
The kid in charge of herding all these animals rode over to us on horseback. He had rosy cheeks and was wearing sneakers and a dark gray robe tied with a gold-colored belt. As he got closer, we were struck by just how young he appeared.
How old are you?
He doesn't
Age.
He doesn't understand.
No.
But eventually, through sign language, we managed to find out that he was just 10 years old, which seemed astounding.
To think that a kid that young is in charge of 1,000 sheep and goats.
While we had him there, Drew figured we should check to confirm we were heading the right way and that the path we were on would take us to the next town we were trying to find.
Sir.
Sir?
Hey. Hello? Kavda?
Kovt? Is that way?
To our surprise, he pointed behind us.
We can't go this way? No? Oh, he's pointing back over the hill.
Can't get back that way.
No, he's saying not that way.
He crossed his arms into an X as if to say the path ahead of us was closed.
He's very insistent that we can't go straight ahead. Well, I don't know then.
He seemed like he knew what he was talking about, but given that several other people we had spoken to earlier had told us we could get to Kovs this way, we didn't know who to believe. Anyway, even if we wanted to turn around, it was too late by this point, so all we could do was cross our fingers and hope for the best. We thanked him and said goodbye, then we got back in our cars and continued driving.
This looks on the map like this may just work.
I'll be very happy if it does.
But then we reached a vantage point at the top of another ridge.
What's down there? Do we have to get over that thing?
No,
it's like a dried up riverbed.
We're about to see.
It doesn't look promising, Drew said.
What?
We'd arrived at the top of a really steep and rocky hill. If we were even able to make it to the bottom, we'd have to cross a couple of small brooks and then somehow manage to climb back up the rocky trail on the other side. We got out to take a closer look.
This is a canyon.
Yeah.
This isn't a bloody river crossing, it's a freaking great
Well, it looks like
canyon.
it's a dried up river
Well,
or something.
yes, but it was a canyon.
Yeah.
She took a moment to survey the situation.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm actually anxious at this point. Because if we get down into that and we can't get up, we're hoping that somebody comes and helps us.
We're not going to find anybody out here to help us.
No.
Yeah.
Jane walked over to the three of us.
Well, the good news is it's very pretty up here if you've got a four-wheel drive. The bad news is there's not so much as a goat for miles and miles.
Drew took it all in stride.
This is the most adventure that we've been in so far.
Oh, yes. And I guess I expected that from Mongolia.
Here we are.
But now I'm...
Having second thoughts?
Yeah, well, too late for second thoughts, isn't it, really? I'm just really... How do we get out of this if we can't drive? If we can't get our cars up there, what do we do? Do we have any options at all? Or do we have to start walking?
Doesn't look like we have many.
Don't think we have any.
Mongolia was a really interesting place. The scenery was so sparse and empty and unlike anywhere else I've ever been. I tried my best to describe it throughout this episode, but sometimes you really just need to see it for yourself. So I highly recommend you visit my website at farfromhomepodcast.org to check out some photos and videos my brother and I took on our journey. If you're on Instagram, you should also follow Far From Home there. Just scroll back in my feed to see tons of cool photos and updates from when my brother and I were in the midst of this journey a couple of summers ago. Next time on the show, spoiler alert, we get stranded and we worry about the dangers of a flash flood.
So it's starting to rain right now, and it looks like those clouds are heading our way, and it doesn't look great. You know, the nightmare scenario is if the river comes up and then we're stuck on this side.
And seeing our predicament, it's hard not to blame ourselves for ending up in this situation.
I just feel incredibly stupid and guilty right now. Like, we're totally unprepared. We have these stupid vehicles. I mean, that's the point of the thing, but...
Totally. It's why I've been upset, because I just feel stupid.
I'm happy to announce that my old colleagues at PRINDY, the National Organization of Public Radio News Directors, recently gave an award to Far From Home at their annual conference in Philadelphia. Thanks so much to all of you for your ongoing support of the show and for continuing to spread the word to your friends and colleagues on social media and through word of mouth, because it really does help. Remember, you can sign up for my newsletter on my website to get emails with bonus content whenever a new episode is released. Special thanks to Katie McGee and Drew Gurian for editorial assistance with this episode, and to the Public Radio Exchange for podcast hosting and technical support. If you're looking for a better way to listen to podcasts and discover great new shows, you should check out the Radio Public app in Google Play or the Apple App Store, and you'll be forever grateful. Thanks for listening.
I forget who said this, but adventure is physical and emotional discomfort recalled in tranquility. That's what this is all going to be about. When you're doing this, you're going to have times where you're going to say, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? I could be home. But you know what? When you finally finish it and you have these memories, that's something that lasts you a lifetime.